Part 2 of our build guide focuses on removing exterior pieces of the donor car. Start by getting the front of the car up on jack stands. Be sure to chock the rear tires. Place the jack stands just behind the doubler. If you place your stands too far back, the car will be nose heavy and unstable. The stock hubcaps are held on by plastic nuts. Use a 19mm socket to loosen them. Use the same socket to remove the front tires. The front bumper of our car was torn off when it was wrecked. If yours is still attached, follow the how-to guide in the link at the bottom of the screen to remove yours. To get to the fender bolts, the inner fender well has to be removed. Start by taking out the inner fender well screws with a 7mm socket. The rest of the inner fender well is held by plastic clips. You don't need to keep these, so just use a hammer and a paint scraper to break them. There are 3 along the back and 2 at the top. Pull down on the inner fender well to remove it. Pull out the foam insert at the back of the fender. Use a 10mm socket to remove the fender bolts. There are 2 bolts at the bottom and 1 behind the fender. You'll have to open the door to get to 1 bolt. Work your way around the fender, taking out the rest of the bolts until the fender is free. After removing the fender, take off the front fender bracket. Use a 10mm socket to remove the hood hinges. To remove the windshield wipers, pry the plastic cap off and use a 13mm socket to remove the nut. Lift the windshield wiper arm and wiggle it back and forth to break it loose. Repeat the process for the other windshield wiper. Use a hammer and a paint scraper to break the plastic clips on each side of the cowl. Then lift the plastic cowl grill up to pop it loose and remove it from the car. Take out the 3 wiper motor bolts with a 10mm socket. Turn the motor assembly over to make it easier to get to the electrical connector. Use a screwdriver to pry down the lock and pull the connector loose. Remove the 2 upper dash bolts with a 10mm socket. Removing the doors will make stripping the interior much easier. Start by prying out the door conduit cover and disconnecting the door plug. Stuff the plug back into the car. Next, use a 10mm socket to remove the bolt that holds the door stop to the car. Close the door all the way and use a 13mm socket to remove the 4 door hinge bolts. The door should stay upright on its own. Reach through the window and grab the armrest to lift the door. Be sure to collect all the fasteners you've removed. Many of them will be reused during your Goblin build. Lean the seat forward and slide it to the front so you can get the seat bolts under the back of the seat. Use a 15mm socket to remove the 2 bolts. Pull the seat back to unhook the front of the rails. Lean the seat over and disconnect the connector under the seat. Then remove the seat. In the next video, we'll disassemble the front suspension and drop the powertrain out of the donor.